I want to start with a very specific feeling. You know that pit in your stomach you get on a Sunday night? Sunday scaries.
Yeah, that dread.
It's that dread of walking into the office the next morning. And, we usually just write that off as I hate my job or, my boss is annoying.
Right, we treat it like it's just a mood, maybe a personality conflict.
Exactly. But I've been going through this stack of research you sent over, and I had this kind of realization. This isn't just about liking or disliking your job.
Go on.
The argument in these materials is that bad leadership is actually a biological threat to our bodies. Like, my body is reacting to a toxic work environment the same way it would react to a predator in the wild.
That is the absolute core of what we're unpacking today. We're looking at the biology of leadership.
Okay.
And the big takeaway from all these ideas is that leadership isn't a management style. It's not about your strategy document or your vision statements.
It's something deeper.
It's a biological imperative. It's rooted in how we actually survived as a species.
Which sounds incredibly intense for a discussion about, office dynamics. But the guide starts with a really concrete example to ground all this. It takes us straight to the Marine Corps.
It does, and it zeroes in on a very specific tradition that really it defines their entire culture.
Okay.
If you go to a chow hall in the Marines, you'll see the most junior recruits, the ones who just got there, they're eating first. And the most senior officers, they're eating last.
And just to be clear, because I was actually looking for it, this isn't written down in a rule book anywhere, is it?
No, and that's the fascinating part. No one wrote an order saying, General, get to the back of the line.
It's just a cultural norm.
It's just what they do.
So why? In the corporate world, it's pretty much the opposite. The CEO has the catered lunch or the big reservation, and the interns are, grabbing a sad sandwich at their desks. Why do the Marines flip that?
Because the Marines understand the true price of leadership. That whole concept of officers eat last is a physical manifestation of a biological truth.
Which is?
That leaders are expected to sacrifice their comfort for the survival of the tribe.
So it's a signal. It's saying, I will make sure you survive before I take care of myself.
Exactly. And that signals safety, which leads us to the environment itself. The guide, it paints this really vivid picture of a circle. Inside the circle is your team.
And outside the circle.
Outside the circle. That's the danger.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. That sounds very noble, but businesses aren't war zones. Why do we need this tribe survival mentality in, say, an accounting firm?
Because the environment dictates our behavior. Just think about what's outside that circle. You have your competitors, sure, but you also have the alchemy.
Right.
You have new technology that could make your product obsolete overnight. You have pandemics. The point is, the danger outside is constant, and it's effectively out of your control. You can't negotiate with a recession.
The danger is a given. It's always there.
Precisely. So the biological logic goes like this. If the danger outside is guaranteed, then the inside of the circle must be safe. Because, and this is the key insight, we have a limited amount of energy.
I think I see where this is going. It's a resource management problem.
It is. If I have to spend my energy protecting myself from you, worrying that you'll steal my credit, or that layoffs are coming, or just that the boss is in a bad mood, I have zero energy left to face the real danger outside.
So internally, we're basically fighting a civil war while the actual enemy is marching up to the gates.
You got it. And that's when organizations fail. It's not because the competition killed them. It's because they were too exhausted from all the internal combat to even fight back.
Okay, so that's the setup. But to really understand why we react this way, we have to, pop the hood on the human machine. The material calls us chemical-dependent machines.
It makes us sound a bit like robots, but it's really accurate. There are 4 primary chemicals that drive all our leadership behaviors, and they're split into 2 very distinct camps. You have the selfish chemicals and you have the selfless chemicals.
Let's start with the selfish ones.
Yeah.
These are the ones that help me personally just get through the day.
Correct. They're all about individual survival. The first one is endorphins. Think of this as the mask of pain.
This is the runner's high, right?
That's it, exactly. And biologically, its purpose is super simple. It's to starve off physical pain so you can hunt the mammoth or, run away from the tiger.
And in the office.
In the office, it's that second win you get when you're grinding through a late-night project. You're exhausted, but you feel good. That's just endorphins saying, keep going, you can do this.
Okay, so that helps me power through. But the real star of the selfish show has to be the next one.
Dopamine, the goal achiever.
Everyone talks about dopamine these days. Usually it's in the context of, social media addiction.
And for very good reason. Dopamine is the chemical of progress. It gives you that feeling of satisfaction when you accomplish something. When you cross an item off your to-do list, that's dopamine. When you finally find your keys, ding!
I feel that. I have to admit, sometimes I write things on my to-do list that I've already done, just so I can cross them off and get that little hit.
That is literally you hacking your own dopamine system. And biologically, this is a good thing. We need to get things done. We need to find food. But here's the trap.
What's that?
Dopamine is highly addictive, and the feeling is incredibly short-term.
It doesn't last.
It never lasts. Hit the sales target, you feel great for maybe an hour, and then you need to hit the next target. It's a solo game. You can be a dopamine addict, highly successful, achieving goal after goal, and have absolutely no friends and feel completely unfulfilled.
Which is why nature gave us the other two chemicals.
Exactly. The selfless ones. The social glue.
So serotonin and oxytocin.
Yes. These are the chemicals that make us a we. Let's look at serotonin first. This is the leadership chemical. It's the feeling of pride.
Okay, so how is pride different from that dopamine I did it feeling?
That's a great question. Dopamine is internal. I did it. Serotonin is social. Look what we did. Or even more importantly, I made my tribe proud.
I see.
It's the feeling you get at graduation. You aren't just happy you finish. You feel that surge of status when you see your parents beaming at you from the audience. You feel your status rise within the group.
So it reinforces the bond. It's all about social standing.
It's about your perceived value to the group. We follow leaders who have high status because, historically, they were the ones who could protect us. We give them our respect, and in exchange, we expect safety.
Which brings us to the big one, the one that actually creates that safety.
Oxytocin, the chemical of love.
People usually call it the cuddle chemical.
It is, but in a leadership context, it's really the chemical of trust. It's what happens when you shake someone's hand, when you help someone without expecting anything back. And here is the crucial biological kicker.
What is it?
Oxytocin inhibits addiction, and it boosts your immune system.
Wait, it boosts your immune system. So having a good leader can actually make me less likely to get sick.
Literally, it makes you healthier. But there is a catch with oxytocin. You can't hack it.
Unlike dopamine, where I can just check a box.
Exactly. Oxytocin takes time. You can't just walk into a room and say, trust me. You have to earn it over time. It's slow. But once it's there, it creates a bond that is incredibly hard to break.
So we have the happy chemicals, but now we have to talk about the villain of this story. The reason I have that stomachache on Sunday night, the guide calls it the enemy within.
Cortisol, the stress hormone. And I want to be really clear here. Stress isn't just in your head. It is a systemic biological shutdown.
A shutdown, that sounds extreme.
Well, think about it. When you sense a threat, say a saber-toothed tiger, your body just dumps cortisol. This chemical's job is to prepare you for immediate physical action, fight or flight.
Right.
And to do that, it shuts down everything that isn't essential for surviving the next 5 minutes.
Like what?
Your digestion, shut it down, growth, turn it off, your immune system. You don't need to fight a flu virus if you're about to be eaten by a tiger. Save that energy for your muscles.
Which makes total sense for a tiger attack.
Right. But here's the modern tragedy. Our bodies can't tell the difference between a tiger and a toxic boss.
Wow.
So when you go to work in a culture of fear, where you're constantly worried about layoffs or humiliation, your body is literally dripping in cortisol. Constantly.
So you're just walking around with your immune system suppressed and your digestion turned off just because you're at work.
Exactly. And that's why these high-stress environments lead to things like heart disease and diabetes. And socially, it gets even worse. Cortisol inhibits oxytocin.
So it kills trust.
It biologically inhibits empathy. When you're stressed, you are scientifically less capable of caring about other people. You become selfish just to survive.
This explains so much about modern corporate culture. If everyone is stressed, everyone is selfish. And the guide points to a specific modern problem that makes this so much worse. Abstraction.
Yes. Abstraction kills empathy. This ties right back to the Milgram experiment.
The one with the electric shocks.
That's the one. The study proved that the more abstract people become to us, the more physical or emotional distance there is, the more capable we are of inflicting harm on them.
That's dark.
It is. In the experiment, people were willing to deliver lethal shocks to a stranger as long as they couldn't see them or hear them screaming.
But how does that apply to the office? I mean, we aren't shocking people.
Aren't we? We have modern abstraction. We manage by spreadsheet. when a leader sits up in a tower and just looks at a screen, people aren't human beings with families and mortgages.
They're just cells in a column.
They're just numbers.
Right.
And it's a lot easier to delete a row in Excel than it is to look someone in the eye and fire them.
Exactly. And when you combine that abstraction with a dopamine-addicted culture, you get what the guide calls the dopamine loop, or destructive abundance.
This is the hamster wheel.
It is. Imagine a culture driven entirely by short-term metrics. Quarterly earnings, stock price, bonuses.
It's all dopamine.
All of it. We hit the number, we feel good. But to hit the number next quarter, we might need to cut costs. So what do? We lay off 10% of the workforce.
We sacrifice the people to save the numbers.
And that just destroys trust. So now the remaining employees are full of cortisol. They're selfish. They aren't helping each other. Performance drops. So the leader says, we need to hit the numbers, and pushes even harder. It's a death spiral.
So how do you break the wheel? What's the actual solution here?
Well, we have to return to that concept of safety. The guide uses the imagery of the Spartans.
The phalanx formation.
Right. The Spartans were the greatest warriors of their time, but their strength didn't actually come from their spears.
It came from their shields.
Exactly. They stood shoulder to shoulder, and each man's shield protected the man to his left.
So the warrior is safe not because he's strong, but because his brother is protecting him.
That's it. And the guide argues that the leader's mandate is to extend that circle of safety to the very outer edges of the organization, to make sure that everyone, from the executive suite right down to the front desk, feels protected.
That sounds great in theory, but does it work in the real world? Because the guide gives a case study here that is pretty incredible. It's about a company called Barry Wemler.
This is a classic case. It was 2008, the market had just crashed. This is a manufacturing company, and they saw a 30% drop in orders almost overnight.
That is a catastrophe. I mean, the management by spreadsheet move would be layoffs, right? Cut costs immediately.
Well, absolutely. Sacrifice people to save the numbers. But the CEO, a guy named Bob Chapman, he refused. He looked at the situation and said, we are not going to fire anyone.
So what did they do?
Instead, they came up with a solution rooted in that Spartan mindset. They instituted a mandatory furlough program.
Okay.
Every single employee, from the CEO down to the janitor, had to take 4 weeks of unpaid vacation. They could take it whenever they wanted, but everyone had to do it.
And the quote from Bob Chapman here is just, it gives me chills. He said, "It is better that we all suffer a little so that none of us has to suffer a lot."
That is the definition of the circle of safety. And look at the outcome. They saved $20 million, so they hit their financial goal. More importantly, morale actually rose during a crisis.
How is that even possible? People were losing wages.
Because they felt safe. They knew their leader had their back. And then the chemicals kicked in, oxytocin.
Yeah.
People started trading their weeks off.
No way.
Yeah. Those who could afford to take more unpaid time took weeks from those who couldn't. They protected each other.
That's incredible. They acted like a tribe.
They did. And it highlights a structural problem in most companies. The guide shows these two diagrams comparing authority and information.
This is the bottleneck issue.
Exactly. In a typical organization, the people at the very top have all the authority, but they have very little information about what's actually happening on the factory floor or with the customers.
And the people at the bottom have all the information. They know what's broken, but they have zero authority to fix it.
Right. So the goal of a true leader is to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
To give authority to the information. You empower the people who actually know what's going on to make the decisions.
That's how you get speed and responsiveness and trust.
And that requires a totally different mindset. The guide calls it the infinite game. There's a graph here comparing the manager and the leader.
It compares two very famous figures. You've got Jack Welch of GE representing the manager and Jim Sinegal of Costco representing the leader.
The graph for the manager, for Welch, it's wild. It's jagged, it's up and down, huge spikes.
Well, that's the lead the numbers approach. It's a finite game. He's playing to win the quarter, and he did. But the cost was high anxiety and really volatile performance. You might have a great quarter and then a terrible crash.
And the leader's line, Costco.
It's a smooth, steady, upward trend. Let's lead the people. It's an infinite game. The goal isn't to win business. The goal is to stay in business. And the result is high trust and stable performance over a long time.
That stability is what we all crave, really. But getting there requires a certain level of humility that just seems so rare. There's a story near the end of the guide that I think perfectly captures the attitude a leader needs. It's the story of the ceramic cup.
This is a beautiful story about a former Undersecretary of Defense. He was giving a speech at a large conference. He took a sip of coffee from a styrofoam cup, and then he just paused and went off script.
He looked at the cup and smiled.
He said, you know, last year when I was undersecretary, I spoke at the same conference. They flew me business class. They had a car waiting for me at the airport. They took me to my hotel. And when I came backstage, they handed me coffee in a beautiful ceramic cup. He said, this year, I'm no longer undersecretary. I flew coach. I took a taxi to the hotel. And when I asked for coffee backstage, they pointed to the coffee maker and said, help yourself. And I'm drinking it from this styrofoam cup.
And the realization he had.
He told the audience, I realized that the ceramic cup was never meant for me. It was meant for the position I held. I deserved the styrofoam cup.
Wow.
It's hard.
It's the ultimate lesson. Rank and privilege are loaned to you. They are tools to help you serve your people. They are not rewards for your ego. The moment you leave that role, you give back the ceramic cup.
But the leadership, the way you made people feel, that stays with you.
Exactly. Which brings us to the final call to action in this deep dive. Be the leader you wish you had.
It's a reminder that leadership is not a rank. It's a choice. You don't need a title to do this. It is the choice to look after the person to your left and to your right.
And we'll close with the quote provided in the guide from John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And if you want a simple way to remember all of this, all the biology, the chemicals, the strategy, just remember that command from the Marines.
Eat last.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Now go out there and serve someone else first. We'll see you next time.